all will know I love the laser pointer and the pen. Can y'all see this red line underneath on the slide? Can I get a verbal yes?
Yes.
Yay. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. All right. So we're going to be talking about Medi-Cal Estate Recovery, what you need to know and how to hopefully avoid it. Um, we're going to talk about a few things, some caveats and some shout outs in the beginning. I normally do like an intro into our services, but we have a lot of slides to go through and we have a little examples and little mini quizzes throughout. We're just going to dive right in. But at the end, we'll have a telephone number attached to our line here in order. Shout out to Canner. Canner is the California Advocates for Nurse. Content of this presentation comes from their amazing resources, which are hyperlinked here. I know the presentation is recorded, but I also provided to Caregiver Resource Center the PDF of the slides. These slides are all, and the links are all hyperlinks, so y'all will be able to access these after. But shout out to Canner. They really do a lot of education and training behind this very, very important topic of Medi-Cal state recovery. Okay, I'm warning y'all. Today is not going to be about Medi-Cal asset eligibility rules. Today is going to be about estate recovery. And let's kind of talk about the difference between the two. Again, today's presentation is Medi-Cal estate recovery. Medi-Cal state recovery rules are different from the Medi-Cal asset eligibility rules. So keep that in mind. Again, the Medi-Cal estate recovery rules, this is going to be applying to a deceased person who used to receive Medi-Cal benefits and certain services, and how to potentially protect any sort of estate or assets that they leave behind after they pass. Medi-Cal asset eligibility is for a living person who's either trying to get Medi-Cal or trying to stay on Medi-Cal. So just keep that in mind. These are two separate set of rules, and the rules are different. So keep that in mind. Again, even if you are Medi-Cal asset eligible, you can still be in danger of Medi-Cal estate recovery because there's different set of rules that apply to these different sets of populations. Okay, but let's talk about it. Let's do a basic breakdown. What is Medi-Cal estate recovery? I'm going to read this because it's important. Medi-Cal estate recovery is a process that the state of California, we're talking about the lovely golden state that we live in, uses to seek repayment. So we're talking about paying back and taking away from your potential estate for the cost of certain services provided under Medi-Cal from the deceased recipient's estate. And we're going to talk about exactly what that estate includes and what it doesn't include, more importantly. When does this happen? This happens when after the Medi-Cal recipient passes away. Okay, so this is after. Okay. All right. I know this looks super intense, but this is our one-pager cheat sheet flowchart. It hopefully answers 90% of your questions that you may have that has to do with Medi-Cal estate recovery. I know it's a lot, but we try to cram it all into one page so that it's conveniently all there. It's a flowchart, so it starts with the question. This is the question that we're going to start off with today. Will California go after my assets after I die? This is the main question that y'all, are concerned about, and that's why hopefully that you are here today. And so we want to make sure that hopefully we're answering these questions that come about. Okay, we're going to be starting up here. Throughout this presentation, we're going to go down the flow chart, and we're going to hit each of these boxes with different categories. Okay, so let's start up here again. Will California go after my assets after I pass away? That's the ultimate question that hopefully we'll answer at the end of the presentation. Okay. All right. This is a basic, but we do have to just make sure we make it clear. Cover California and Medicare. Can California go after my estate for my covered California covered costs after I pass away? The answer is no. So we're talking about Medi-Cal Estate Recovery, not Covered California Estate Recovery. There is no such thing as Covered California Estate Recovery. But the question is, what if I received APTCs, which stands for Advanced Premium Tax Credits, what I like to call discounts on monthly premiums? What if I receive these? Do I have to pay these back, after I pass away? The answer is no. There is no such thing, like I said, as Covered California Estate Recovery. You could receive these services and these APTCs and premium discounts. As long as you qualify, you don't have to pay these back after you pass away. Can California go after my estate for Medicare covered costs after I pass away? The answer is no. Medicare doesn't have a Medicare estate recovery program like Medi-Cal does. And Medicare, keep in mind, Medicare is something that you paid into. You're putting money into that Social Security and Medicare pot. This is a program that you've paid into and that you are entitled to. So no, there is no estate recovery for Medicare or for Covered California. Okay, so let's kind of test our knowledge that we just got from the last slide. Let's talk about a scenario. We're going to use John as our example throughout this presentation. John is 70 years old. He spent about 100 days in a skilled nursing facility, what we call SNFs, before he passed away. Medicare, these are just made up numbers. Keep that in mind. Medicare paid about 100 grand for the nursing facility care. John never had Medi-Cal, so he's never had Medi-Cal in his life. Okay, is John subject to Medi-Cal estate recovery? We got a 50-50 chance. If anyone wants to come off mute or wants to put it in the chat, you got a 50-50 chance. Is John subject to Medi-Cal estate recovery? Yes?
No.
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 No. All right.
No.
Yay. Good, everyone. You get brownie points. If I could give you virtual gold star stickers, I would. Boop, 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 boop. All right. No, John is not subject to Medi-Cal estate recovery. He is safe because he never had Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal did not pay for any of his healthcare costs, so keep that in mind. And Medicare doesn't have an estate recovery program. Again, Medicare is an entitlement program that you've paid into the system and into the Medicare pot. So you don't have to pay back the services that Medicare has covered and paid for. All right, very good. 1 out of 1, everybody. Good job. Okay, so this is where we are at in our flow chart. In the green boxes. Will California go after my estates after I die? For Covered California stuff, no. For Medicare stuff, no. All right, so we answered these questions, but we're going to go down the flow chart, okay? Let's talk about the who question. Who is subject to Medi-Cal estate recovery? We're going to break it down. Who is subjected to Medi-Cal estate recovery? Okay, so let's break it down. Medi-Cal recipients who are age 55 and older when they received inpatient nursing facility care. So if they were 60 years old and Medi-Cal paid for any sort of nursing home care, they may be in danger of Medi-Cal estate recovery. Again, if they are 55 and older when they receive what we call inpatient, we call this ICF for the developmentally disabled. If they received any sort of inpatient intermediate care facility for the developmentally disabled, if Medi-Cal's ever paid for any of these sort of services when they were 55 and older, then again, we may be in danger of Medi-Cal estate recovery. If they receive certain types of what we call home and community-based services, and we're going to talk about this in the next couple of slides, then they may be in danger of Medi-Cal estate recovery. And then any Medi-Cal recipients at any age who was, and this is a special term of art, permanently institutionalized. I don't like this term, but this is the term that Medi-Cal still uses. It's kind of an old school term, but permanently institutionalized, and it has to be in a nursing home or again in that ICF facility or any other medical institution. And it's a medical determination where you've been determined that you cannot reasonably be expected to be discharged or return home. So keep that in mind. This phrase permanently institutionalized. Okay. Oh, I circled it. Great. So let's look at an example of someone who potentially was permanently institutionalized. Okay. All right.
Hmm.
Scenario. We're going to use John again. John. John died unfortunately at the age of 40. Okay. So keep in mind 40. John was considered permanently institutionalized in a nursing home. Okay. Again, that phrase. Medi-Cal paid, again, just made up numbers, but paid 100 grand for his nursing facility costs. Is John subject to Medi-Cal estate recovery? Is he going to have to worry about Medi-Cal estate recovery after he passes? Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
We got a
Yes.
few yeses, we got a few nos. Okay, let's break it down together. Unfortunately, yes, he is in danger of Medi-Cal or estate recovery. Even though John was under the age of 55, he was considered again permanently institutionalized and is subject to Medi-Cal state recovery. Let me go back to the prior slide. So we're talking about these are either ors. Okay, so you can be 55 and older and receive one of these, or at any age, if you're considered permanently institutionalized, Medi-Cal can go after and try to recoup those costs. I mean, the reason and policy behind a lot of this is these types of care costs a lot and it costs the state a lot of money. And so if there is an asset or an estate to go after to kind of recoup on those costs, the state of California is going to try to do their best to do it. But there's a ton of exceptions that we're going to go through to potentially avoid collection and recovery. Okay. All right. So unfortunately, John is going to be in danger of Medi-Cal estate recovery. Okay, so here we are in the flow chart, right? So we are here. If you have Medi-Cal, will California go after my estates after I die? Maybe. Let's keep going down. If in this scenario, John was 40, right? He was 40 years old, so he was under the age of 55. He was considered permanently institutionalized. So we're in the maybe category. For John, unfortunately, the answer was yes. But let's keep going, okay? Okay. Who is subject? This is the same site that we had before, but we're going to specifically highlight these certain home and community-based services. So again, only certain of these programs are going to be subject to Medi-Cal estate recovery. Let's talk about the ones that are and the ones that are safe. Okay. These are the lists of California's home and community-based service waiver programs. We live in the great state of California that offers amazing programs that are available to folks if they qualify medically and financially. And if they receive these services, unfortunately, the ones that say yes in red, they are in danger of Medi-Cal estate recovery. So if they participated in what we call the AIDS Medi-Cal waiver program, the more popular assisted living waiver program, also what we call the HCBA, which is the Home and Community-Based Alternative Waiver Program. We're also talking about the HCBS DD. Again, DD stands for the Developmentally Disabled Program, or the MSSP program, which is the Multi-Senior Services Program. All of these, unfortunately, legally, statutorily, the state of California can potentially go after your estate and recoup the cost simply because the cost of these waiver programs is really high. And if California can go after and try to recoup on that money, they're going to try and do so. But keep in mind here, these programs are safe. We're okay. If you ever were enrolled in the California Community Transition, this is like the program where if you're transitioning from a nursing home back home, they provide you services and devices and home modifications that help you be able to return home safely from a nursing home. There's also the PACE program, the program of all-inclusive care for the elderly. There's, I believe, two or three PACE centers in Orange County. So if you are a PACE member, you do not have to worry about Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. For IHSS, I know a lot of y'all and your family members do have IHSS. You don't have to worry about Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. IHSS costs are not recoverable. And then also CBAS, the Community-Based Adult Services, which was formerly, I don't know why they changed the name because the former name is more intuitive. It really calls out what the program is. The Adult Day Healthcare Waiver Program. If you are part of the CBAS program, you don't have to worry about Medi-Cal State Recovery. Okay, this is the same information, but in a chart format. So again, if you're more of a chart person, this is exactly the same information. So these programs, you're going to have to worry about Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. For these programs, you don't have to worry about it. You are safe from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Okay, so let's look at an example. Example with IHSS. All right, we're looking at John again. John, he was 70 years old. He receives 5 years worth of IHSS before he passed away. California paid about, again, made up numbers, but California paid 100 grand for his IHSS care. Is John going to be subjected to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery?
No,
Either yes, either no.
no,
No.
No, okay. No, John is safe from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. IHSS is a home and community-based service program that is not subject to Medi-Cal State Recovery. So if you, again, you or your family member are IHSS recipients, IHSS beneficiaries, they get, in-home supportive services. You don't have to worry about paying all that IHSS money back. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to go to the chat real quick. Which one, the listed Medi-Cal programs that are subject to estate recovery is most common? Let me go back here. And again, the more popular one is assisted living because assisted living and home and board and care costs are quite expensive. And so a lot of my clients are really interested in learning more about assisted living, but the assisted living waiver does have a really long wait list and there's limited number of enrollment slots. But I do have clients who eventually get enrolled into the program. So this would be a popular one. I would say, honestly, there's not HCBA is also, HCBA also includes private duty nursing. So some of my clients who do require like higher medical care in the home, they may be an HCBS beneficiary. And then also we do have, our DD population who may be receiving services through this waiver program. Yeah, so Brett, I don't know how to answer your question. I would say maybe these are the most common, but just to know that all of these, you may be in danger of recovery. Okay. Okay, I hope I answered your question. Please feel free to ask more questions or ask if I didn't answer it, ask me again and maybe I could answer it in a different way. Okay. All right. So we're going down this flow chart here. All right. So I think this was John, right? He was 70 years old. He was here. He was over the age of 55. He received IHSS, but he's safe. He's good to go. No Medi-Cal Estate Recovery with IHSS. Okay. All right. Let's look at an assisted living waiver example. Okay. John, again, same John. He was 70 years old. He was on the assisted living waiver program before he passed away. Again, made up numbers, but California paid about 500K in assisted living care costs. Is John going to be subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery? Either yes or no for assisted living waiver costs.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Min. Again, more gold stars for you. Good job. Yes, unfortunately, John is in danger of Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. The assisted living waiver program is a home and community-based service program that is subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Okay, so good. You guys are, You guys are getting A pluses all across the board. And even if you got these wrong, we're learning, and we're all learning together here. Okay. All right. Let's answer the what. I'm a fan of, the grammar school, elementary school, who, what, where, why, hows, and making sure we answer those questions to fully understand the topic. Okay. What type of estates are safe or not safe from recovery? So let's break down what is not safe first. Let's kind of talk about the bad news, and then we'll talk about some of the good news. Okay. Oh, well, before we do that, we're going to talk about what the heck an estate is. I've been using this phrase, this word over and over during this presentation, but let's kind of break down what like the legal definition of an estate is. It's any property, so that could be real property or it could be personal property in which the individual had any legal title or interest at the time of death. So this includes property or assets in the deceased Medi-Cal beneficiary's name. Okay? Or another way to say it is all the property legally owned by the deceased person is called the person's estate. Okay? So you hear this word, it is technically a legal term of art, and it means a specific thing for Medi-Cal purposes. So let's break it down. What is not safe? So this is the danger zone. Let's talk about the bad news. These are the danger zone assets that we have to worry about, okay? Assets that are subject to probate. What the heck is probate? Even as an attorney, it took me a long time to figure out what the heck the word probate means. So let's break it down. Probate is a legal process that you must follow to transfer or inherit property after the person who owned the property has passed away. Essentially, it's if you need to go to court, this is commonly called going through probate. Okay, this is the definition from the self-help California court website. But kind of an easy way is if you don't have a will or you have a will. Um, assets that are distributed through a will typically will go through probate. So for a lot of my clients, they say, hey, if I have a will set up, am I going to be safe from all this Medi-Cal estate recovery mumbo jumbo? No, you're going to still be in danger. Wills do not protect you against Medi-Cal estate recovery. Okay, so let's talk about it. Okay, and we're going to break down what probate is and then what assets are not subject to probate in the next couple of slides. Okay, so again, this is one of the types of assets. Any estates that are subject to probate, we're in the danger zone. For any debts that are on or after, this is again, a lot of you in the chat were looking at what the new estate recovery rules are. This went into effect last year, but the new rule is a primary residence valued at more than not at, but greater than 750K. If your primary residence is valued at more than 750K, you're in the danger zone. Again, these are for those who had passed away on or after April 1 of 2025, because that's when the law went into effect. So again, this is a new thing that just came in last year. Okay. And any what we call large estates. Okay. I know you're thinking, what the heck is a large estate, Joan? It's kind of, let's define it in the opposite. Let's define what small estates are and what small estates are safe from Medi-Cal estate recovery. Okay. So again, because of the different laws that have changed kind of through time, these are the different updated small estate value amounts. So let's kind of start from the bottom and then work our way up. If you passed away before April 1 of 2022, then a small estate would be considered this amount, 166,250 or less. If you have this amount or less and you passed away before April 2022, then your estate is considered small and it's safe from Medi-Cal estate recovery. Okay, let's break it down and keep going up in the timeline. If you passed away from April of 2022 to April of 2025, which is when some of this new laws went into effect, and you had an estate that was valued at $184,500 or less, you're going to be safe from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. And the good news is, if you pass away now or you pass away, any time after or on or after April 1 of last year, they kind of break it down into personal property and real property, but this amount is way higher than what used to be the amount, which is great. But the California law has been more expanded and in defining what a small estate is. But if you have 208,850 or less in personal property, and if you have 69,625 or less in real property, you are considered a small estate and you are safe from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Okay? So this handy dandy little chart, income chart, or not income chart, asset value chart is in the flow chart, the one-pager cheat sheet that we've been referencing. Okay, so let's talk about small estates, y'all. Okay, let's do an example. Our good buddy John, 70 years old, was on the assisted living waiver program before he passed away. California paid about $500,000 for his assisted living waiver care costs. Again, made up numbers. When John passed away, he only had about 10 grand in his bank account. He left no other assets in his name. Okay, he had 10 grand in his bank account. Is John going to be subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery? Yes or no?
No.
No. Okay, Min, you get another gold star. No. John is from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Let's break it down. Even though the assisted living waiver program is a program that is subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery, there's a but here. His 10 grand is considered a small estate. So it's going to be considered exempt and it's not recoverable. Okay. So he and his heirs or whoever ends up getting the 10 grand, his family or whoever he wanted to give it to, they're going to be safe from being able to get that without Medi-Cal getting their grubby hands on it. Okay. All right. So again, same information from the two prior slides, but we're going to focus on this. For deaths that are on or after April 2025, a primary residence valued more than $750K. Okay. All right, we're talking about our good buddy John. John is 70 years old. He received inpatient nursing home care before he passed away. Okay, inpatient nursing home care. Again, made up numbers. Medi-Cal paid about $500,000 for his inpatient nursing home care costs. When John passed away, he had a $500,000 home in his name. So it was valued, his fair market value was $500,000 in his name. Is John subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery? Is John going to be subject and worrying about Medi-Cal Estate Recovery with his $500,000 home?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I see some yeses. I see some nos. Okay. We got a mixed bag here. All right. Let's learn together. No. John is safe from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Let's break it down. He is technically over 55, right? You know, that 55 is that kind of range that we were talking about. He is 70. And Medi-Cal did pay for his inpatient home care. Again, this is technically a recoverable cost, but his home is technically less than $750K. This is that new law that we just talked about that went into effect after April 1 of last year. So because his home is worth less than $750K, it's not going to be recoverable. So whoever the home ends up going to after he passes away, they're going to be able to inherit it without, again, Medi-Cal getting their grubby hands on it. Okay? Okay. All right. I'm glad we're doing these quizzes because we're learning a lot together as we go through this. Okay, what is safe from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery? So now let's talk about the good news. I know there was a lot of bad news in the danger zone stuff that we were talking about. Now let's talk about the safe zone. Here are the assets and the properties that are safe from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. So any property that are transferred prior to death. So, if there was I'm trying to think. Any sort of property that you transferred that's no longer in the beneficiary's name by the time that they pass away on their date of death, it's not going to be subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Okay, any property that's not subject to probate. So let's break it down because there's a ton of stuff that is not subject to probate. Again, we talked about this. Primary residence that are valued at or, oh, sorry. This should say less. I'm so sorry. I apologize, guys. This is a big error. This is a big error on my part, but this should say less. Ooh, okay. Primary residence valued at 750K or less. Again, these are for passings that are on or after April 1, 2025. Gabby, I'm going to go ahead and I sent you the PDF of these slides. I'm going to update it with the correct information.
Got it.
750K or less. Okay. Okay. All right. Ignore that, please. So 750K or less. All right. So we're talking about this. If for your math folks. Okay. All right. Joint tenancies. So any property that is held in what they call as joint tenants or joint tenancies, you are safe. You don't have to worry about Medi-Cal getting the grubby hands off of it after you pass. Trusts, whether it's a revocable living trust or an irrevocable one, trusts are safe from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. The different question is if trusts are placing your assets in a trust will make you eligible for Medi-Cal, not estate recovery, but Medi-Cal asset eligibility. That's a different question. So keep that in mind. Any accounts that have what we call PODs or TODs. So any accounts or property where you have it payable on death or transfer on death, accounts or deeds. So it could also apply to property. There's things called TOD deeds. Anything that has that listed, it basically says you're already naming someone who's going to receive this account or this asset or this property when you pass away. So, my bank account, for example, has a POD that lists my kids. So my kids will get all the money that's in my bank account when I pass away. Survivorship. So there are certain things called survivorship titles or survivorship yeah, I guess you just call them titles. If there's anything that has a survivorship, then you don't have to worry about Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Mobile homes and other manufactured homes. So keep this in mind. Mobile homes and other manufactured homes are technically exempt from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. What you may have to worry about is if you also own the land that your mobile home is on. Keep in mind, it's still subject to the other Medi-Cal Estate Recovery rules. So keep that in mind. For mobile homes, sometimes you just own the mobile home. Sometimes you also own the land that sits on it. So just keep that in mind. Those are subject to Medi-Cal State Recovery rules. Both of them are. Registered vehicles. So any registered vehicles you have, not the one that's not registered, that's just sitting on your driveway, that may be subject to Medi-Cal or state recovery. A classic car that's not registered may be in danger of Medi-Cal state recovery. But if you have a registered vehicle with the DMV, you're safe and good to go. Let's talk about life insurance. Life insurance. If you name a living beneficiary, then you're fine. You're safe. But say, for example, you had a life insurance policy, you named, and the only person you named was your spouse on the life insurance policy. But unfortunately, your spouse passed away before you did. So that means that the life insurance policy and its proceeds will go to your quote estate that's going to have to go through probate and for your heirs to inherit. So you just need to make sure you name at least one living beneficiary on your life insurance policy. Keep in mind, if your estate is named as a beneficiary, it may not be safe. So keep that in mind. If it's going to go through your estate, it might have to go through probate unless you have like a trust. So just keep that in mind. Just be careful on how you list your life insurance policy beneficiaries. Same with retirement accounts, okay? So exactly the same. If you name a living beneficiary, you're good to go. If you happen to, name a beneficiary who's already passed or died before you did, then potentially that retirement account might have to go through probate, which may be subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. So I always tell my clients, for life insurance policies, for retirement accounts, it's always a good idea to look at them at least on an annual basis just to update them and see, because maybe you've listed someone who's already passed away. And again, for retirement accounts, if your estate is the named beneficiary, you may not be safe depending on how your estate is held. If it's through like a trust, I think you're still going to be okay. But if it's not and it's just going to go through probate, you may be in danger. Okay. All right. So joint tenancy. Oh, let's see. Let's look at an example. Joint tenancy. John, again, our good friend John, he is 70 years old. He was on the assisted living waiver program before he passed away. Again, made up numbers, California paid $500,000 for his assisted living care costs. When John passed away, he had a $1 million home held as joint tenants with his sister. Okay, so his sister and John were on the title of the home as joint tenants specifically. Okay. Is John subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery? Yes or no? 50-50 chance. No. Okay, I got 2 no's in the chat. All right. No. Luckily, John is safe from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Even though assisted living waiver is technically an HCBS program that is subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery, let's keep looking down at the facts. Technically, yes, his home is over the $750K threshold, so he may be in trouble, but let's keep going. But his home is held in joint tenancy, which is not subject to probate. It's safe. Ooh. So when he passes, his home is going to go to the surviving joint tenant, which is his sister. So the way that joint tenancy works is, say, for example, me and my spouse, we have our house and we hold it in joint tenancy. Joan Chang and Michael Chang, we have it together as joint tenants. If I pass away, it automatically goes to him. And vice versa too. If he passes away, it just automatically goes to me. That's how joint tenancy works. So when John passes away, it's going to automatically go to his sister as the joint tenant. And again, Medi-Cal is not going to get their grubby hands on it. Okay. Okay, let's look at a living trust example. Okay, a living trust. John, again, same John, same hypo. John is 70. He was on the assisted living program, assisted living waiver program before he passed. California paid about $500,000 for care costs. He had a $1 million home held in a living trust, and his sister is named as a beneficiary on the trust beneficiary, I should say. Okay. Is John going to be subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery? Yes?
No.
Or no? No. All right. All right, man, another gold star for you. Okay, no. John is safe from Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Again, let's break it down. Technically, assisted living, we're in the danger zone here because assisted living waiver costs are recoverable, but and his home, right? His home is over the 750K amount, right? So he's in the danger zone. But his home is held in a living trust. Living trust is not subject to probate, okay? So it's safe. When he passes, his sister will inherit the home through the living trust. You don't have to go through probate court for his sister to get the home in her name. It's just going to be done through the living trust. Okay. All right. I hope we're learning a lot here along the way. Let's go through our flow chart here. Again, we were here for a lot of our John examples. We were doing assisted living. All right. So, and he was 70. And then we were talking about small estates, right? The small estates is that chart that we were talking about. But um, but again, for joint tenancy, we were talking about joint tenancy. We were talking about trusts. Where is it? Trusts. We also were talking about primary residents that were valued at or less than 750K. So these are some of the examples that we saw with John. Okay, but there's other stuff here. So there's a lot of good info on this one-pager cheat sheet. Okay, who is eligible for an exemption? Okay, so let's talk about exemptions in Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Okay, if a deceased beneficiary, Medi-Cal beneficiary is survived by any of these folks, then they can file for an exemption. If they're survived by a child under the age of 21, so it's not necessarily a minor. Medi-Cal has this really great thing where, quote, children are considered age 20 and younger, so under the age of 21, or a blind or disabled child of any age, or if they're survived by a spouse or a registered domestic partner. So RDPs are also counted. Keep in mind, it was before I go to this. So if they are survived by any of these types of folks, then Medi-Cal Estate Recovery gets halted and stopped. Okay, so there is an exemption for these folks, these populations. So keep that in mind. Beware though that any of these folks might be Medi-Cal beneficiaries themselves. So keep that in mind. Once they pass away, their estate could be subject to a estate claim after their death. And we're going to look at an example of that. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, we're going to go. Surviving spouse. Let's look at it. Again, we're looking at our friend John, 70, assisted living. California paid for a lot of his assisted living care costs. He passed away with $1 million home in his name only. He is survived by his wife, Jane. Okay, so the home was in only John's name, not Jane's name, just John's. John's name. Okay, and he is survived by his wife, Jane. All right, we're looking at John and Jane now. Is John going to be subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery? Yes or no? This is kind of a tricky answer.
I think the answer is yes.
Min, you are right, okay? And that anyone who wrote no is also right. Okay, so technically the answer is yes. Technically, yes, he is subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery, but his wife, Jane, can file for an exemption because she's the surviving spouse. So the technical answer is yes, but really the practical answer is no. Okay, but let's talk about Jane now. All right, unfortunately, John has already passed away. Jane has inherited the home that was in his name only. Let's talk about Jane, because Jane also had Medi-Cal. So Jane was 75. She was also on the assisted living waiver program before she passed away. Okay. California paid again $500,000 for her assisted living care costs. When Jane passed away, she still had the $1 million name. It was in her name only. So it wasn't in a trust that Jane set up. It wasn't in a joint tenancy with any of her family members or her kids or anything like that. So it was in just her name only. So now the question is, is Jane subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery? Wow, wow, wow. We got a lot of yeses coming fast. All right, y'all. Yes, yes, yes. The bad news bears here. Yes, because she was older than 55, again, she was 75 at the time, and she did receive that assisted living waiver cost, right? And because her home is valued at more than 750K, the $1 million home is subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Okay? So again, we this, this kind of shows how the pre-planning that married Medi-Cal beneficiary couples or registered domestic partnership Medi-Cal beneficiary couples have to go through. You have to plan for when both of y'all pass. Okay, so making sure that you protect your assets and your estates, even after both folks pass away. Okay. Again, we're looking at this green box. We went through this flow chart here. You could always do an exemption if there's a surviving spouse, a surviving registered domestic partner, a minor child, which is considered under age 21, or what we call a blind or disabled child of any age. This is defined by Social Security Administration. It's a term of art, blind, disabled. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I'm answering Pat's questions. So could she could have avoided that by putting it in a trust? Yeah, yeah. If here, let's go back. If they didn't do it then, Jane could have done it once she inherited the home. At that point in time, if she put it in a trust, she would have been safe. If John put it in a trust here, instead of it being in his name, if he put it in a trust, it would have been safe. So yes, the trust can be a very important and valuable estate planning tool for couples and families. Okay. This is kind of the last resort. So who is eligible for an appeal or a potential waiver? So this is kind of like last resort territory here. So if you weren't any of those exemption populations, you're not a surviving spouse, you're not a minor child, or you're not a disabled or blind child, how does a survivor appeal an estate claim? If the heirs or survivors of the estate do not meet any of the exemptions, they can still try to appeal. You can appeal by filing a hardship waiver. You have to file it within 60 days of the date that you get the scary California Medi-Cal Estate Recovery claim letter. And you could also apply for what we call a caregiver exemption. You qualify if you had provided care to that Medi-Cal beneficiary for 2+ years, and you, I believe, were living with the there's criteria that I included here. The waiver application includes the criteria boxes for both of these. There's different types of hardship waivers. I think there's like 6 different types. And the application itself, if you click on the link, it's a convenient criteria checkbox, so you can see which ones apply. Some of it is going to be income and asset based. Some of it will be, well, all of it will be based on income and asset, but also there might be some other caregiver exemptions that's also listed. Okay. The advice is don't ignore it. When you get that scary DHCS estate recovery claim letter, don't ignore it, because if you ignore it, the state eventually will send the claim over to the AG's office, the California Attorney General's office, and they may file a lawsuit against the estate. So always answer, always answer. Okay, so let's look at an example. Again, John, age 70, was on the assisted living waiver program before he passed. Again, California paid $500,000 in his assisted living care costs. When John passed away, he had $1 million home in his name only. John's wife passed away before he did. Okay, so we don't have a surviving spouse. But he is survived by an adult, a daughter. The daughter is not disabled. Okay, is John subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery? I get some
Yes.
yeses, I get some nos. Okay, well,
Yes.
let's break it down. The bummer news is John is going to be subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Let's go into the reasons why. No exemptions apply, right? He doesn't have a surviving spouse. He does have an adult daughter, so she's not 21 and young, or she's not younger than 21, and she's not disabled.
Mm.
She's an able-bodied adult daughter. Because he was older than 55, again, he was 70 at the time, and he got his assisted living waiver cost paid, which is subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. Also, because his home is worth $1 million, right? It's over that 750K threshold. It is going to be subject to Medi-Cal Estate Recovery. So his adult daughter should consider filing a hardship waiver. Again, she has to do so within 60 days of receiving the scary Medi-Cal Estate Recovery claim letter. Okay, so this is kind of last resort territory. Again, right here, it says here, last resort. Survivor can appeal an estate claim. There is a hardship waiver. You can do an Medi-Cal estate hearing, request for a hearing before administrative law judge, so that you can plead your case as to why you'd meet the criteria for the waiver. There's a caregiver exemption. So keep that in mind. You could also get legal representation. Canner does have a lawyer referral service, a panel of private attorneys that if you need assistance with representation with a private attorney, you can pay someone to do so. It may be worth it because if the estate is huge, paying a couple of thousand to an attorney may save you hundreds of thousands in whatever, property or home that you're trying to protect. So keep that in mind. Okay, so we went through this flow chart. We got to the last box with the last resort of filing an appeal. Okay, keep in mind, this is the notice that you get. It used to be a yellow notice. I don't think they send it in yellow anymore, but it used to be. You get this twice a year. If you are an active Medi-Cal beneficiary right now, you typically will get this in the mail twice a year. Usually folks throw it away because it's just like the fine print writing, but they give it to you for a reason. This is the stuff that basically we went through today. This is basically warning you twice a year, hey, when you pass away, you might be subject to Medi-Cal State Recovery. Here are the things that, could be recoverable. Here are the people who might qualify for an exemption. It goes through kind of that detailed information. It specifically says, please share this notice with family members because that's ultimately, once you pass away, it's not your problem, it's your family's problem. And so if you want to not leave them a problem, we want to make sure y'all do some advanced planning beforehand. Okay, how can I protect my home and property? We've kind of talked about this throughout the presentation, but just some takeaway tips. How can I protect my home? A way to do that is leave nothing in your estate when you pass. So once you pass and you have nothing in your name, there's nothing to grab. There's nothing to take. There's nothing for Medi-Cal to get their grubby hands on, okay? Doing estate planning to ensure that your estate will not be subject to probate. Again, examples are a living trust, joint tenancy. These are just examples. The long list is in the prior slide and the long list is also in the flow chart. Transfer on death deed. These are just examples of how to avoid probate and avoid estate recovery. Okay, plan accordingly depending on your age and health. Again, mobile homes are exempt, but the property your mobile home sits on may be recoverable. We talked about this. I am not a tax attorney, so just keep that in mind. I am a Medi-Cal health attorney. All the advice all the legal information that you got today, I have nothing to do with tax consequences. You want to make sure you talk to your CPA or your tax preparer before you do any sort of rearranging with your assets, because it might have tax consequences that might outweigh a Medi-Cal state recovery claim. Okay. I'm going to skip through this because I know it's 11:01. I'm happy to stay on board, but these are basically the same threshold questions you asked that's in the flow chart. Okay, the handy dandy flow chart will be there. This is our number if you have further questions. And then if you want to do a survey for us, that'd be great. Okay, I'm happy to stay because I know I went over time. But if folks have questions, comments, concerns. And Gabby, if you have to go too, I'm happy to kind of hold down the fort. I apologize for going over.
No worries. Yeah, and I can stay after too, but yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today. We will be e emailing out the recording of this class and also like any materials. But yeah, we can continue as long as you have time, Joan.
Yeah, yeah. My apologies. I thought I had like 5 more minutes and then I
Thank
blinked and it was
you,
gone.
Gabby. Thank you, John.
Oh, thank you, man. You're
Thank you.
lots of
Appreciate
gold
your
stars.
thank you.
Joan, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. I may have missed it, but are you going to have a presentation on Medi-Cal eligibility and
Yeah.
asset protection or
Let me see.
anything along those lines?
So we don't have one planned. I can talk to Rachel at the Caregiver Resource Center, to talk about Medi-Cal asset eligibility rules. Um, I probably want to do it after July 1 because there is a proposal. The California budget is proposing to change the asset limit back to 2,000 for a single person and 3,000 for a married couple. So it'll be probably be after because then we'll know whether or not the rules are changing.
Can I ask
But
you a can I ask you a quick question right now related to that?
I can't give you legal advice that's specific to your case, but I can provide you general legal information. Yes.
If we have rental property aside from our primary residence, and I put
Rental.
that just in my name, will that be considered an asset of my husband's
Um,
as far as
uh,
Medi-Cal eligibility?
for eligibility, yes, but there's something called spousal impoverishment, which is another hour-and-a-half presentation that I believe we
Hmm.
have a recording on too, Gabby, on the website. There may
Okay.
be ways around it, but depending on how much, if it's a California property, it's probably going to be more than the spousal impoverishment asset limit. So, yes, the answer is yes, it's going to be counted against a spouse that is applying for Medi-Cal. Um,
Okay.
Milana, if you want to go ahead and contact our office, and we could do a personalized assessment for your spouse.
That would be great. That would
Yeah.
be a huge help.
If you're in Orange County, if you're not,
Yes.
then I can give you another number. We'll go
No,
from
I'm in Orange County.
there.
So
Okay.
just the
This,
community legal aid. Oh, there you go.
yes. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure. I mean, let's see. Let's go through these. Doop. Are these laws the reason for IHSS denials? Um, No, because again, IHSS is not subject to Medi-Cal Estate. Oh, because you're saying they're not getting IHSS like recouped. No, IHSS eligibility rules are different. Um, yeah, I mean it's they have their own sets of a set of criteria. Um, so I want to say no, but Melinda, you're right. You're saying the policy behind it is if they can't recoup on IHSS costs, they're trying to make the IHSS door narrower by denying folks. I get what you're saying. Can California go after property that is out of California? I don't know. That is a good question. I'm not sure. Um, I don't know.
Sources that I might
That's
go
something I'm
looking
gonna have to research, Pat. Let me look that up. Pat's question, outside California property.
assuming it becomes part of your estate.
Yeah,
Is
I
in
don't,
your
I want to say,
names.
I mean, like the conservative brain in me is saying, yes, they could go after everything, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm admitting my legal limitations and I could do research on it after. And maybe I can give the um answer over to Gabby and she could email out the answer to y'all.
But
Were the
if it's
new
all in
rules.
a trust, then it would all be protected.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I'm not sure if that's gonna protect it. Yeah, let me see. Were the new rules made retroactive? No, again, it's for deaths that occur on or after April 1, 2025, Patty. Okay, Lily, I am confused between the real property. Yes. So the small, let's go here. This one, honestly, I was confused by this too. I think this has to do with any other real property that is outside of your primary residence. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think of in California, if you own like a small plot of like dirt land that might be valued at this much or less. It's not likely in California, especially in SoCal. But it's it's this outside of the primary residence, if that answers your question, Lily. You get both. You get this, plus you get this. Okay. And then Lily, can Medi-Cal beneficiaries contact your office for free consultation regarding this topic? Yes. So keep in mind, our office, we're a legal aid nonprofit office, but we are not estate planning attorneys, so we can't help you draft up wills and trusts and things like that. But if it has to do with Medi-Cal Estate Recovery, we can go through the assets that you have and see if it may or may not be, subject to estate recovery. That we can do. And then if there's further like need for an estate planning attorney, we'll probably refer you over to Canner. They have a list of private attorneys who can do that for you, for a cost. Okay. Ingyang, I believe your the recording is going to be posted on the Caregiver Resource Center website. Pat, how can you get a list of the similar agencies in our particular area? Okay, let me see if I can. We do have other legal aids in other counties, so let me do that after. Okay. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm answering all these questions. Raina, if property is listed under a trust and spouse not listed as joint tenants, is the property safe? Yes, it's in a trust, so it's not going to be subject to probate, so you're good. And spouse is not, you could do or, honestly, you could do or. You could do the proper, like a home is in a trust or the home is held at joint tenants as a spouse. The spouse is going to be protected, one, because they're the surviving spouse, and two, because it's held in a joint tenancy. It's not going to be subject to estate recovery and anything in a trust. So you could do a or situation, Raina.
Okay, Joan, can I just get a clarification on that?
Sure.
Okay, so say the property is in a trust and the trust was created prior to the marriage. So because California has that communal property, right? That law. So is it still would the spouse still have like ownership? I don't know how you call it. Like
That's a family law question in Medi-Cal
Okay.
State Recovery. To answer the Medi-Cal State Recovery, if it's in a trust, it's going to be safe from Medi-Cal getting their grubby hands off of it. Whether that property goes to the spouse, that's a trust question and maybe a family law question that I can't answer,
no
unfortunately.
worries, no worries. Okay, wanted to know where to ask that.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
go to the trust attorney who set up the trust.
Okay.
Yeah, and they probably will be able to answer. But if you end up updating the trust to name the spouse as the beneficiary, again, I'm not a will and trust attorney, so but
Right.
that's what I imagine you can do.
Okay. Yeah, and the recommendation was to do the executor to be different than your spouse, and that way it takes them out of the whole loop.
Again, I cannot
Yeah,
confirm or
yeah.
deny.
No, okay.
It's like asking a foot doctor to look at your heart. I'm not familiar. Okay,
No worries, thank you.
of course. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. How do I stop sharing here? Okay, another question from Patty. Medi-Cal State Recovery applies to monthly premiums, any and all doctor visits received during enrollment, not just for nursing homes. No, it's limited to nursing home care costs, ICFDD care costs. Hold on, let me discard these. if you are considered what we call permanently institutionalized. So not like, so for example, if Medi-Cal is paying for your Medicare Part B premiums, the $202 a month, no, that they can't recover on those costs. For regular outpatient doctor visits, no, they can't recover those costs. For RX, so say for example, you are in a nursing home and you're receiving medications through the nursing home, those nursing home medication costs can be recoverable. But so I hope I answered your question, Patty. I think the answer is no, not correct. Those things are not subject to Medi-Cal state recovery. Okay, Mary, 2 questions regarding home valuation and possible names for special needs trusts. Um,
Hi, so
oh, sorry, go
my
ahead.
question with regards to home valuation, I apologize if you may have covered this since I did
You're
enter
good.
the meeting late. My parents had bought a home, and at the time that they bought the home in 1994, it was about 110,000. At market value, I understand, is bordering that $750,000 mark now. And so I wanted to confirm, does Medi-Cal look at the price as it's listed through
I believe
what?
it's fair market value. I could be wrong, but I believe it's current fair market value.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so currently my father's deceased, my mother's still around, and there is another person listed on the title. Um, how to confirm if it's considered joint tenancy or not? Because it seems like
Oh, you're not
currently
sure? You can go to the county registrar's office and see, because, and get a copy of the title itself.
understood. And then
Yeah.
the other,
So whatever county you live in, just look, I'm sure you could just Google it, like county copy of deed, and then you can see if you're not even sure how the property is held, what the title is.
okay. And then the other thing I wanted to ask was, um, when my mother does pass, I'm serving right now as her primary caregiver. I do have a brother that is an adult with special needs, disabled, and so we were looking at a special needs trust for him.
Oh,
I
yeah. Let me put up Canner. Canner has we don't set up special needs trust. Canner has their own, again, a lawyer referral service, um, with private attorneys who can set up special needs trusts.
thank you.
Okay, I'll put that in the chat too. All right, Mary.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Patty, I received a bill for 21K for Medi-Cal premiums charged over a period of 2 years subject to Medi-Cal state recovery. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Patty, but if you want to give us a call, this sounds like a very specific question. Again, I can't give legal advice over Zoom. And I don't know if you want everyone to know your business, but feel free to give us a call. And hopefully, if you're in Orange County, if not, I also put in the chat the healthconsumer.org contact. There's a 1-800 number that's listed there. You just enter your zip code and it'll connect you to another legal aid agency that serves your county. And then hopefully they'll be able to answer your question too. The second link that I put in is Canner's lawyer referral service to connect you to a private Medi-Cal estate recovery attorney or estate planning attorney, a special needs trust attorney. Yeah, all that jazz. Okay. Am I missing anyone else? Feel free to just come off mute.
Is the listing of how to find agencies like yours one of those links you just posted?
Yes, the healthconsumer.org contact. Again, it's a 800 number. You enter your zip code and it'll connect you to a legal aid that serves your county. Wonderful. Thanks, Pat. Okay. Is there a 5-year, Patty, there's a 5-year look back on property ownership transfers. There is something called a look back period. I can't, that could be like another 10-minute conversation, Patty. Give us a call if you're an Orange County resident. If you're not an Orange County resident, call the number, the Health Consumer Alliance. I'll just put the number in here. Uh, for other legal aids outside of OC. Okay. 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 I try to do my best to field your questions. I know this is a super hot topic. Y'all want to make sure you protect your family and any inheritances and, making sure you are doing proper planning. Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Gabby, for hosting and staying over. I'm gonna look up the answer on properties outside of California, and we'll look into maybe coming back to do a limit presentation, an asset eligibility, Medi-Cal asset eligibility presentation. Okay. All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.